It's good to have you back. We're going to talk today about a topic that is on the mind of everyone, which is making a living and what happens when things don't go the way we want them to be. So, this person who wrote the letter to the Rebbe encountered some serious financial difficulties in his business, and he wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe answers as following. I have been informed of the loss which has been sustained by your business enterprise, the earnings of which were earmarked for the Lubavitch house activities, and that this unfortunate occurrence has considerably upset you. So as you can see, um, is is just basically allowing he's speaking to the person about the situation that they're in, which is financial loss. So the Rebbe continues, while such a reaction is quite understandable, it is necessary not to lose sight of the real Torah perspective. For as in the case of every occurrence in every matter, the Torah contains an answer and a definite view. Indeed, it has often been emphasized that the Torah is eternal, and not only in regard to mitzvot, but also in regard to the various narratives in the Torah. And while the events and episodes mentioned in the Torah were connected with certain people and certain circumstances and time and place, nevertheless, their message is eternal and valid for all times and all places, with particular relevance also to each and every one of us individually. So the Rebbe is conveying a very, very powerful concept that the Torah that we learn is not a collection of stories that happened thousands of years ago and only were relevant to Moshe Rabbeinu, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're relevant to each one of us because the story of our patriarchs, the story of our fathers is our story. And when you see how they went about different situations, whether they be material, emotional, spiritual, then these are your guides to how you should go about doing things when you encounter these situations. So the Rebbe is going to talk about a very famous story about one of the patriarchs, and it goes as follows. I have in mind the earliest trials and tests which the first Jew, our father Abraham, had to undergo at a time when he was one and only in his generation. And it said, when God said to Abraham, Lech Lecha, go, ordering him to leave his land, his birthplace, and his father's house, it was very difficult for him to do so, even to separate himself from one of the three attachments, not to mention all three together. So in the story, basically, Abraham had to leave this foreign land, had to leave his country, the land that he was so used to, the people, and to go and venture very far away because God told him to do so. But Abraham had complete bitachon, trust in God, and followed him, not knowing what kind of livelihood it will have, whether he will be able to make ends meet, be able to feed his family. So anyway, so the Rebbe continues, and then Abraham was told to go to an unknown land to him, a land that was unknown to him, was called Canaan, and later became Eretz Yisrael, where he was promised he would become great and a source of blessing for all mankind. Yet no sooner than when he arrived there, a famine, a hunger, broke out in this exact place that God told him to go. And it broke out with such severity that he had to leave immediately and go to Egypt, which undoubtedly was also done with God's approval. Under these circumstances, one might have expected that Abraham could seriously question God and question divine providence because they seem so inconsistent and contradictory. Basically, God tells Abraham to leave for another land where he's going to be much more prosperous, and what happens? The opposite of that happens. So so not only that, It says that the famine affected only the land of Israel, and it did not extend to any other land. So from here, we see that this was clearly intended to test Abraham. Yet Abraham not only did not complain, but did everything with joy and gladness of heart, taking his whole family with him, of course, etc. So it all turned out to be a test of his faith, of his trust in Hashem, which we call bitachon, because soon afterwards, Abraham was richly rewarded, and he returned to Canaan, to Israel, with lots of cattle, silver and gold, as the Torah tells us. In reference to this experience of Abraham, the Midrash states that everything experienced by Abraham will also happen to his children being us. So in light of the Rebbe continues, and the reason why the Rebbe uses this story of Abraham is to comfort this businessman who's contacting him about this major financial loss that he experienced. And he not only experiences financial loss, he experienced it right at a time when he was supporting the different Chabad institutions of the Rebbe. So he was very sad about it, because he wasn't able to contribute as much as he wanted in terms of charity to the Rebbe's institutions and activities. So anyway, the Rebbe continues. In light of the above, you ought to consider yourself very privileged to have the merit to be considered worthy of tests similar to the above that were experienced by Abraham. And the similarity surely requires no elaboration. I am confident that very soon you too will see the happy end of this test and be richly rewarded with silver and gold, also in the plain sense of the word. All the more so, since the profits of this business enterprise have been dedicated to a holy cause. So the Rebbe here is saying that you should have full trust in the fact that this experience that Abraham had, that he also is going through the same thing, that whenever we encounter financial difficulties, those are really tests from God himself, seeing if we are going to hold steady and remain committed to the Torah and the mitzvot, and not lessen our commitment to any of them, regardless of how our parnasa, our livelihood goes. And not only that, maybe to do the contrary, to increase in our mitzvot, and to increase in our commitment to learning Torah, and to increase in charity. So anyway, the Rebbe closes off with the following: inasmuch as we will soon celebrate Passover, the festival of our liberation, may God grant that you should be liberated also from all distracting thoughts of how he's going to make a living with this financial difficulty that he experienced, surely. And he says, and be able to continue your sacred work in matters of Torah and holiness in general, and the activities of charity that this person does for Chabad and for the Jewish people at large, and to do so with joy and gladness of heart. And the Rebbe signs off with the joy and gladness. This is something for us to take into account, that whenever we encounter difficulties, we should be thankful that there's not worse difficulties than the ones that we experience. We should also be thankful for everything that we actually do have, not what just we lost, because everything is a wheel, and if you are on the bottom of the wheel, soon enough that wheel is going to turn and take you higher up than where you were. So this is something for us to take to heart when we have financial issues, that these are tests from God. God is the one who has provided for you since you were born, and certainly he's not going to let you down. So do your part and remain committed, and have complete faith that your Father is never going to let down his children. And in times like those, increase in your commitment to Torah, take on a new mitzvah. We've said that before. The Rebbe says that all the time, is that when you have any kind of difficulty, add add in the mitzvah that you do. For instance, let's say you don't put on tefillin every day. Put it on each day. Encourage your friend who's not putting them on to do it as well. If you're not praying 3 times a day, maybe you should start doing that, or at least once. If you're not celebrating the Sabbath in the most in the best possible way, then take on more, so that you can actually really experience the amazing journey of the Shabbat, and the power of the Sabbath. There's so many things you can do, and certainly charity. There's nothing more powerful than charity. Charity is something that God said, you can test me, because the person who gives charity, he will give him back tenfold, 100-fold. And this is the only place in the entire Torah that God says, test me. Because one should not test God in any other area other than tzedakah. Meaning, the more tzedakah that you give, no problem. God will return it to you tenfolds, 100-folds. And I can say I've experienced that myself. And this is giving me also a lot of chizuk here, a lot of reconfirmation of what I need to do myself when I encounter financial difficulties. So may we all have this attitude of happiness and joy, and never believe for a second that God is going to let us down, because God loves us. And may we all have a lot of success. Until the next time, have a blessed day.